de mi corazón.
There's more than one way to skin a cat, is what my grandfather used to say, and it seems like the Bidens are getting skinned right now, Congressman.
They are. I guess the thing that's most frustrating to me is, of course, I'm not an attorney, but our Justice Department. I mean, I don't know what else you gotta bring to them, and yet, I guess they're just too busy harassing moms who are tired of their kids being taught pornography in public schools, and they need to continue labeling them as domestic terrorists, or heaven forbid, a Catholic who's pro-life is labeled a terrorist as well. I mean, that's what we're up against in this Justice Department, and these people that stay home on election day and allow the View to give them their political perspective. I think this is exactly what we're seeing right now. We've got grifters that are literally sleeping with the enemy. I mean, this is ridiculous. This thing is out of control. And, could you imagine if just one of these incidents had happened during the Trump administration? I mean, it'd be 24/7. They'd already, the DNC would have issued their marching orders, or Soros or whoever else does it, to the national media and the talking heads. It'd be just nonstop. But in this instance, I mean, what else do you need? You've got Tony Linsky. I've said in these meetings, and man, they are so boring. They go through hours of this stuff. I'm not an attorney. I just like, dude, what do you know? And who this and who said that? All right, let's go. 30 minutes later, let's go eat lunch. But this thing, hours upon hours. And I was impressed. I sat through the double secret impeachment hearings over Trump, and I watched some of those people. And then I like what you said about reading. I'll paraphrase, of reading their body motions and how they do things and how they answer things, because these cats, when they're behind closed doors, they act a lot different. They act they act cocky and kind of, smirking and laughing at the rest of us. And then when they're in front of the cameras, they're only place they're sleeping is at the foot of the cross. But I tell you what, Bob Linsky, I like saying his name. It would have been a great name for somebody on The Sopranos or something, Tony Linsky. But this guy, he could name names, dates, times, countries, amounts. It was unbelievable. I leaned over to the lady beside me who was like, I guess, transcribing it or something. I know she was on her computer doing something. And I said, is he doing this without notes? And she said, yes, in fact, he is. And I was like, man, this guy, he's above, he's smarter than the average bear. And, he's no Hunter Biden, I can tell you that. And this thing is just, it's beyond me why the Justice Department, if I was at the Justice Department right now, I'd just hang my head in shame, because I've completely sold out my oath.
Yes. So you found that Bob Linsky was a credible witness. Can you give us some other takeaways from his testimony?
Just his confidence. He didn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll say, when I'm trying to get my thoughts. There wasn't an in this thing. He didn't take a breath. When they would ask him a question, he would look at the person asking the question and he would answer it. And folk, and these things, they try to trip you up and stuff. This guy was lock solid. I was impressed. I didn't have to stay very long. I read people, and I read this guy as somebody who was telling the truth. I don't know his background. I understand now. I understand a little more about his background, but when I walked in, I was a little bit shocked, actually, just how aggressive he was answering these questions without looking at his counsel or whatever. If they were there in the room, I didn't pick him up, because he didn't lean over and say, and they're whispering in his ear, like you see on these things. He just let it go. And everybody else who contradicts him, I would say, is suspect. I would say stack their record up against his and let's roll.
So what does Let's Roll look like? When will these hearings be public? When will the American, I mean, this has been ongoing for now years. Obviously, again, Tucker Carlson was broadcasting this in 2020 before the election.
Yeah.
Joe Biden was saying, look fat, and screaming at voters and spitting out of his mouth. Like he's so plainly guilty of this from 4 years ago. And so I guess the American public are like, okay, when? Like, when do we actually have this out in Congress and listen to these testimonies?
I suspect judiciary gets the first bite of this thing, because I saw Jim Jordan in the meeting, and he was being very Jim Jordan-ish. He's very concise, and he's a chess player, not a checkers player. When he gets enough information and he gets what he needs, I think he'll roll with it. Congress moves like a freaking glacier, brother. I'm ready to go. I'm ready. I'm sick of this crap. Let's get on with it. Let's get it to the floor. Let's plead our case to the American people. But let's be honest. Until the Justice Department decides to do something, nothing's going to happen. And the only thing that's going to happen is, what I hope is, this backfires on them and the American public. So, the smoke screen right now is Congress is a do-nothing Congress. Well, I don't know if you know anything about the voters, but they're sick of us doing stuff to them. They would rather us just stop, and and that's all they've got right now. That's all. If you notice the national media, every story is do nothing Congress, do nothing this. To me, Congress was supposed to be an area where you debated issues. Now we're debating things. We're debating things, minute rules that that we don't understand, that have been put in place by the uniparty to keep those people in control. And the national media is playing right into that, either out of ignorance or a backroom deal. But I like the way things are going. People are leaving Congress, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you mentioned the uniparty. Is this Ukraine abomination going to get a vote in the House?
I hope not. This whole thing is a joke. I've said, you want to blast the Democrats, and Democrats want to blast us, but let's blast the national chambers of commerce, who've stopped every immigration bill and everything. Because it's all about war. It's about money. It's about control. You've got a Pentagon that's never passed an audit in the history of dadgum audits. They cannot account for $500 billion in assets. And you look at what's going on with these companies, and they don't like me, and I realize it. But they're the ones getting fat. And these economists keep saying, oh, this is great for the economy. You don't understand. Half the money they're spending is coming back over here. They're buying bullets and rockets and missiles. And I they're killing people. That's good for business, but it ain't what America needs to be in. We need to be defending our southern border and quit worrying about Ukraine. It's Europe's war. Ukraine is a crooked country, and I hate it. I hate that Russia's rolling over, and Putin's a thug. I don't know if he murdered this guy before or whatever, but he's part of their I mean, of course he's murdered people. He's KGB, man. So and he's a thug. But the GDP of Russia is somewhere between Canada and France. Yet we spent $114 billion, sent our missile defense system. We probably got advisors over there. This is just reeks of Vietnam. And this is all about business. My daddy used to say, and it wasn't original to him, but he said, old men make decisions and young men die. And this is exactly what you see. These rifles behind me right here. Those are Japanese rifles that my dad took off of people that he actually killed. So, I understand what's going on. And I worry about the future of our country, because it's not going to be me going there or any of those members of Congress who boldly want us to borrow money from the Chinese. And, and they keep saying, well, this is helping the Chinese. Well, how's it helping the Chinese other than they watch every function we've got? They've infiltrated our government, literally have members that have I don't know if sexual in nature, but I would assume that's the case. with members of Congress that have sat on our intelligence committees of all things. And this is documented. Yet, everybody's wanting to go to war with Ukraine. Well, what about China and what they've done to the Uyghur population? Organ harvesting, slave labor, concentration camps. Why don't they want to go to war with China? Well, I'll tell you why they don't want to go to war with China. Because the almighty dollar rolls back to our national chambers of commerce and all those other cats. They're getting fat off this. They want cheap Chinese goods, and screw the American public and what we stand for. We don't, people are too busy trying to deal with this runaway inflation, trying to feed their kids to worry about it. But I worry about it. I'll lay awake at night. I wake up in the morning at 3:00 every morning, and I can't get back to sleep because I see what's happening to our country, and our national media just won't call it out. I was on with one of these other cats one time, and I think the show's been canceled since then. And I got to reeling on them, and I was laying the facts out. And they said, "You've got no facts," and they cut my mic off. And then, then they went to blast me on Twitter, and I just laughed because they proved my point. I wasn't bitter. I didn't lose an ounce of sleep over that lousy deal. But we're in trouble, brother. And people like you are our only salvation, because you're putting it out there to 1 million people a day. And you say good things about Tucker, and I've been on with him, but you're incredibly important to this formula, and they would love to shut you down and put you out of commission, because they can't measure what you all are doing. It's kind of an intangible. You can measure, you can figure out the talking heads and the newspapers and all that garbage that just gets their message from the uniparty, but they don't got you, and that's a good thing for our country.
Clip it, Royce. That's the greatest endorsement the show will ever get. So I can't have the great Tim Burchett on with his Southern truths and your crystal clear way of seeing the world without asking you about something that the audience was going gangbusters for last week.
Right.
You say that you're tired of the American taxpayer getting screwed over, but metaphorically and physically, we were all getting screwed over watching Big Fanny Willis and Nathan's hot dog sweating on the stand last week. I don't know if you caught any of that, but I'd love to get your take on what you saw in the Georgia courthouse last week, because even the judge himself seemed to be unable to control his secondhand embarrassment for the prosecution of President Trump last week by Big Fanny. Did you catch any of that testimony, and your thoughts on it, sir?
Yeah, I did. It's kind of like watching some of these other crazy TV shows. You just flip across the dial and it shows up, and you go, "Well, crap, I better watch this thing." And I did. And I have a bunch of buddies of mine that are attorneys. They decided not to take an honest path in life. They decided to practice law and about it, and their thoughts were basically my thoughts. I mean, she was trying to control the narrative. She was obviously, it's one of those deals. I mean, if you got a crooked justice system, she'll walk. But the truth was, I just thought she didn't do herself any favors. I could see her attorneys just shaking their head in my mind, going, "Why did we let her do this?" But I tweeted about it. I think I said something about the same person that allowed her to take the stand as the same one that allowed Joe Biden to do his press conference. I mean, and it put me off really about this. And here I am being a white guy saying this, but when she started throwing the race card around, that ticks me off, because I see racism, and it's real, it's out there. But saying that this was because she was, because she's being accused of something because of her race, to me it's just despicable, because it's the Chicken Little principle. You keep saying this stuff, and then pretty soon people start just shaking their heads on that stuff. And when there is legitimate racism out there, and I just get aggravated with this stuff, because it's just so bogus, and it runs our system down. And
yes.
And the arrogance of her thinking that she could sleep with somebody that worked under her or whatever. You know, I mean, that's HR 101, man. HR, and then to bring her daddy in there and all that stuff, I just like, oh, come on. The whole thing was pitiful. And then I watched, for some reason, when I turned my television on, I don't know, understand it. I get my 16-year-old daughter to figure it out. But when you turn the TV on, it's MSNBC, and those clowns making excuses. It's pathetic. And you wonder why. And then you don't wonder why more people are watching reruns of the Cartoon Network, SpongeBob, than are watching those clowns, because they can't get it, man. They can't pour water out of a boot if the instructions are written on the heel. But they sure they'll take their orders from the big boys. And to me, that's, it's what it is. It's like my daddy told me. I'll tell you this once. I know I talk too much, but my daddy, right before he died, he's laying up there in the nursing home, and I was mayor, and I'm always fighting the big boys. I fought the tax increases, and we won, and I paid down debt. They told me not to do it, and I did, and I got rid of a bunch of stuff we didn't need, and we even gave raises, which is, without raising taxes. And I walked in the nursing home. There's my daddy. It wasn't long before he was going to meet the Lord. I mean, he's on his way out. He'd had a massive stroke, and he grunted out to me. He goes, "Are they on you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." There'd been an editorial and a front page article on something, and he said, "Do you really want that bunch for you?" And I thought, wow, I'm going to remember that, because when that bunch is for you, then you're not doing what's right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. There's a whole meme. There's a Rick and Morty meme about this. Your booze mean nothing to me because I've seen what makes you cheer. And so these people can have their Epstein Island and their Lolita Express, and they can have their demonry. Will be on the side of right, even if that's unpopular. It's always been unpopular. Congressman, you are very popular with our audience. Everyone needs to go follow Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett on X. Get on over there. What are we up to here, ladies and gentlemen? 128,000 followers. Yeah, let's go on our way to 200,000.
That's my daddy's grave right there, and my mama's grave. They stack them in Veteran Cemetery, and you can see, I think there's a couple of rocks on there. Although Daddy fought in the Pacific, Mama lost a brother fighting the Nazis, and my Jewish friends will come by and put a rock on Daddy's grave, and I think that's pretty cool.
I think that's really cool. I think you are pretty cool, Congressman. Please get that Hunter Biden under oath. I think that'll be happening this week or next. And then please come back to the show and report and let us know. That happens on the 28th. The 28th is Hunter Biden's testimony. What are you going to ask him? Final question. What do you ask Hunter?
I'm going to go for the juggler. I'm going to say, did you pay taxes on any of this stuff? I think we're missing. This is the one we ought to get him on. We're not going to get him on anything else, but the American public understands taxes. They understand if they sell $500 worth of stuff on eBay, the IRS is going to be breathing down their neck, and then them $20+ million, and there's no proof of them paying taxes. That's what I want to see. And why the IRS let the statute run on some of that? That'd be another question to ask. But generally, as the 435th most powerful member of Congress, by the time they roll around to my, it's all the good questions are already asked. I generally, the press has already left. I mean, I walk up to them and I start to speak. There's like a custodian's in front of me sweeping, and he's going, "Oh, are you getting ready to speak, Tim?" I go, "Nah, go ahead."
Congressman, Godspeed. Thank you always for being on the program. Come back and report on that great Hunter Biden question.
You got it, brother. Keep putting the truth out there. It's making them nervous.
That's what we do around here.
Right. Hey, and every time I'm on your show, I get the Benny bump, man. My numbers go. Thank you, brother.
Godspeed, Congressman.
Hey, man. One last thing.
Oh.
Roscoe.
Hey, a doggo.
Yeah, it's Roscoe Houdini Burchett. He escapes from everything. He doesn't have a tooth in his head. He fights through the metal fence, and it's crazy. He's a wild man, but he's a good one. Thanks, brother.
Roscoe Houdini. Don't let Hunter Houdini escape next week, Congressman.
Roscoe Houdini Burchett.
Roscoe Houdini Burchett.
Thank you, brother.